Welcome to Alpine Landscape with a fitting vehicle, the new Audi A4 Allroad in the facelifted version. General infos about all the facelifted versions of the A4, and here a special focus on this lifted up one in Full HD, full screen and full length. Let's go with Autogefühl. Here with the facelift of the Audi A4 you get a bigger front grille. The Allroad version has those vertical fins right there in a contrasting color. I think a very beautiful design, Quattro logo right there. And then those silver contrast in the lower area that makes it really unique from the front. Some of the other facelifted versions have those Quattro citations with the plastic layer right there. The Allroad does not have that. I think it looks more elegant in this way here. This color here, by the way, is called Quantum Grey. Yeah, Quantum Grey. Where do we know it? Yeah, it was James Bond movie, one day, Quantum Solace. Very interesting. So then here, what about that one? Those are the optional matrix LED lights with an interesting daytime running light. But you also now get normal LED lights from standard equipment since the facelift. And here we go. You can see there is this turning indicator light which has this cascading function. Always very interesting to see. 4.73 m, 15'5" or 186 inches is the length of the A4, always the same, has also not changed. And the wheel size is 16 to 19 inch. Those ones here are 18-inch wheels, and it's quite good compromise. I think already looks quite nice. And the Quattro Allroad here, or the Allroad Quattro, how they call it, it's always very special also from the side profile. It now gets this special new Quattro badging here in the lower end with the silver contrast. And so far there was a just plain plastic contrast in the wheel arches around here. And now you still have the black contrast, but it is painted. Very interesting and looks a little bit more sophisticated. And this Quantum Grey color is also quite cool because it is somewhat, let's say, a mix of matte and metallic. Depending on the light, it sometimes looks in that way and sometimes in the other way. And then here we have got the chrome frames around the windows. Pretty elegant design together with those roof rails. Quite seldom you can see that in facelifted models there are changed tools for the metal sheets, and there they did it actually. So this is a new design line they added, and that means they really had to invest a lot of money to change the tools for the A4. And another one of those lines you find towards the rear here. Wow, what a stunning landscape here, and I hope you really enjoy it, that we always show you those beautiful cars together with the stunning landscapes. Here, by the way, you can see the cascading turning indicator right here also at the rear, and Allroad Quattro badge at the rear too. And then this contrast again from the darker paint together with the silver in the lowest part. And again, I think that makes this car really special. In this case, very, very big fake exhaust, but with this petrol engine here, you have real exhaust on the inside, each on both sides. Petrol and diesel engines available. With the facelift they have been upgraded as for the emissions treatment especially, and there are also new mild hybrid engines available, for example in the S4 TDI. Very interesting. And what's also interesting is that the bigger ones, the 3-liter TDI and the 3-liter V6 TFSI, they get the converter automatic gearbox and the classic all-wheel drive setup, 40% power in the front, 60% in the rear. And the smaller ones, the 2-liter TFSI and the 2-liter TDI, they have this front plus rear all-wheel drive system if they have all-wheel drive. The lower specs will be just front-wheel driven. Here today we have a 2-liter TFSI with 245 horsepower, the top 2-liter petrol engine, but there are also other horsepower specs available, 190 horsepower, 150 horsepower, the smallest one also available then with a manual gearbox. And in the S4 in the US, you will still get the 3-liter TFSI with 354 horsepower, 4.7 seconds acceleration figure. Then on diesel side, there's a 2-liter TDI with 136 horsepower, 163 or 190, and then the 3-liter TDI with 231 horsepower, or the one we have already shown you, the S4 3-liter TDI with 347 horsepower, 700 newton meters of torque, and 4.8 seconds is the acceleration figure right there. So those are the facelifted engines available so far. Which one would you actually go for at the moment? The car key is slim and light, like that. Door closing sound. Pretty solid. See here the door handles lift up, and even the door handles themselves, they have a contrast between silver and the vehicle color. Interesting. Then somewhat soft touch at the inside of the doors, and then this is my favorite spec here with the matte wood. So this one here feels very nicely, it doesn't leave fingerprints. Then the leatherette insert at the inside of the doors. Also clicking sounds for the window levers. Also nice build quality here for the electric control for the side mirrors. Then some small bolts would fit in there. This one is the optional Bang & Olufsen sound system. Really nice quality like that. And then the rest of the interior, you can see you have some more matte wood right there. This is the normal steering wheel, but already looks quite sporty. Soon more to those new digital instruments and the new touchscreen when we have the interior overview. Seats from the A4, there are also base fabric seats available, which I would recommend. Then you get those sportier seats with more side support right there, and this one here is the optional animal skin spec. So rest of the interior, first glimpse, and now let's get into the details. Seating position is actually quite comfortable. The base seats, to me, are a little bit more comfortable because a little bit more open. However, in winding corners, those ones here give a little bit more support. I just know that the optional S Super Sport seats we had in the S4, they're definitely less comfortable than those ones. In the lower end, you can also lengthen the seating area. That's good. Electric control, steering wheel manual, up and also in and out. And with 1.86 m or 6'1", it leaves me plenty of headroom still. This one is not equipped with panoramic roof, but there is one available optional. Interior overview, analog instruments are standard, optional those full digital 12.3 inch. And then only this new screen is always this hardware, 10.1 inch. It's good that we don't have like 3 different sizes now anymore. Soon more deals to that. It pops out visually quite a lot, but you can see you can reach it very well, and you need to, because everything is done via touch here. There's no control knob in the lower part. So while driving, those ones were quite handy, but then again you can reach it very well to control it. Again, zoom to the details. Climate unit, I love that, still available here. This is the optional one. The standard one looks a little bit less sophisticated, but still does job. But really cool with the visualization and also with the control here in the middle part. The drive select in the lower part for the different driving modes. And below that, USB supply also for the Apple CarPlay, Android Auto connection, 12-volt power supply, adaptive cup holders then, and for example, you can put the key in the lower part here or also in front of the cup holders. So those two nice spots are available for the key if you don't just leave it in your pocket. And the steering wheel from this view here for the sound control, and left side to, for example, zoom in and out with the digital instruments, or also to put something else on the display right there. And this matte wood is being used here again with the Quattro logo, nicely done, and also in the lower area, so it gives the really cozy and premium atmosphere. Last but not least, there is this armrest. You can pull it up, and then you have a USB-C port, so they mix it a little bit, next to an inductive charging platform. The head-up display is a useful option. You can see here the current speed, allowed speed, and also some GPS information, and very well to see. Yeah, analog instruments will also do just fine, but this one is of course somewhat cool, especially if you put the GPS map here all the way through, and then you can zoom in and out with your thumb on the left side of the steering wheel. That's pretty amazing. And you can also put some other information on here if you like, but the GPS will be the most useful one in this case. Infotainment system is quite easy to learn. You have this app view, and the things you use most will be of course the GPS right here with a very nice satellite view visualization. You do not get the GPS as standard, so the difference is they make the hardware the same, but then you can upgrade the software. For example, go for GPS or not. And it does a very good job in here. This one is the highest software trim, so to say. Apple CarPlay can be accessed right there. And then you can check it out here. It's also all the way over the whole area, so it's a nice integration. You can still connect your phone via Bluetooth. That would also be possible. And at the moment here, it hotkeys to the Apple CarPlay right there. And the sound from the Bang & Olufsen optional sound system is amazing, by the way. Here under car, you, for example, can go to the drive select, but it will automatically pop up when you use the buttons in the lower area. And then we can take a look at the seats here, some options for here. You can play around with the system quite a lot, also some AC infos and so on. But you know, most of the time you will use the Apple CarPlay or the Android Auto and the navigation system. But everything is a clear view, and you can get along with this system here very well. I really like the software they have put on there. And the rear view camera here, which is really fantastic, has a great resolution. This is also the highest trim here with the drone view from above, and you can see here those lines that adapt accordingly where you are actually steering. You can also activate and deactivate it. Here, there we go. They can also change the angles from the front, top, rear, sides, then also at the wheels here. Wow, so can do a lot with that. There you can see that you don't damage them. In the rear here, it's quite decent from the comfort. Of course not the best overall from all cars, but in this premium mid-size segment, it's actually quite good. You also have some space left in front of your legs there. And also for my size, no problem with the headroom. And of course, advantage here with the Estate, with the Avant, that goes all the way back also as for the headroom. The bench falls a little bit backwards, but overall it's still somewhat okay. Nice that they also use soft touch at the inside of the doors in the rear. And also, again, this matte wood surface. And some more details right here. There is a big middle tunnel right there, so it's not that comfortable to sit on the middle seat. And also this area here is quite stiff. Then there's a separate climate unit if you like. 3-zone AC optional for the rear. It even has here clicking sound. 2 more normal USB slots in the rear as next to the 12-volt power supply. Then ISOFIX at the outside of the seats each to install the child seats. Here and here, there are those covers, then you can also remove them right here. And in the middle, there is, first of all, this middle armrest with some cup holders and some more space underneath here. And you can also use this one here as a ski hatch, like this. So for alpine regions in the winter times, that might be important. Electric hatch is standard for all A4 Avants or Estate. This one here, the Allroad, only available as an Estate. And you open the hatch either below the Audi logo. You can have a foot kick opening mechanism. This car does not have it. The S4 Avant that we had, that one had it. Or here, press twice on the key and then the tailgate lifts up. Beautiful job here with this cover. But probably most of the time you want to spend your time defending this or protecting this color. Then here about 1 meter in width, I already put the measuring stick in here. 500 to maximum of 1,500 liters is the capacity. Here the normal length is about 1 meters and 5. And the height here to the smallest margin is about 40 centimeters. And the overall height is just over like 73 centimeters. Really good that this cover here, look at that again when I close the hatch. And it goes down automatically. That's really cool. And then it's shut. And when I lift it, it goes up automatically. That's probably the best solution there is on the market at the moment overall. Then, if you do not have a mild hybrid engine, so one of the more classic engines, so to say, then you also have some space underneath here. And then there's the normal battery. And then, the only flaw with this vehicle, the seats here don't flip automatically. You have to go around and do it from the side. And then it doesn't even, it makes no sense to release them right there, because then you can use the normal release from here anyway. So yeah, not sure why that's this solution then. If you put the head restraints up, you can put this one down a little bit further. But overall, a very well usable car here, especially as the Estate. Welcome to Thomas's driving lounge here with the Audi A4 Allroad, together with the big petrol engine, 245 horsepower. Well, big petrol, 2-liter petrol engine, but the high horsepower spec as for that one. And the all-road suspension, which comes close to the adaptive suspension you can also pick for the normal models. But here the car is, as I said earlier, 3.5 centimeters higher. Oh, there's an A4 gathering here. So, and let's see, how is this Allroad different to the other versions? We've recently driven the S4, the sportier one, also with the adaptive suspension, but with a sportier tone. Then in general, what about this petrol engine also, if we compare it to the strong diesel we've driven? This one here has just, under 7 seconds, so less than 7 seconds to 100 kilometers or 62 miles an hour. So, yeah, about 2 seconds slower than the S4 diesel or also the S4 petrol engine you can get, for example, in the US. But still, this is somewhat a strong engine, and the good thing about the petrol engines is, oh, the squirrel. Oh, there's a turbo blue S4 coming. I just love that color. In some other vehicles they call it Ara blue. It's a little bit different, but really a very daring, bright blue color. Really cool. So starting here in the normal driving mode, just everything on auto. This one is also equipped with the acoustic dampening package. The A4 is already quite silent. If you have this additional package, it's super silent, so you hardly hear anything from the outside. That's so relaxing. And this mid-size vehicle here is meanwhile at such a high stage, and especially after this facelift, that you really have to think about, do you still need the A6 for that? Of course, yeah, I mean, longer wheelbase and so on, more sophisticated still somewhat, and the ride is even more confident and calmer. Or birds, pay attention to that. But again, as I said, for most users, and also looking at the price-performance ratio, for example, this one here, oh, what a landscape here in southern Tyrol. Very beautiful. Belongs to Italy here, this part. So beautiful mountains, really cool. And again, I already feel super relaxed when driving this car due to this, oh, no, little squeak from the tires, right? From the brake disc. It can sometimes happen if they, like maybe it was wet overnight or something. There's a small thin layer or so, and then you brake once, and then it's gone. So we just wait for this construction site to clear up, and then we'll keep on. So we're good to go again. Now going some uphill. And the difference is here, when I'm driving the petrol engine, there's a better reaction from the lower RPM regions. That's somehow more fun to drive. With the S4 diesel, you always had to use the manual shifting pedals to get it in a low gear. And one of the reasons for that are also the new emission rules, because when they would start with the diesels from low RPM, they would put out a lot of emissions, and then it's hard to filter them. And indeed, the modern diesels, they are pretty clean now, but they also have to take some actions to keep them clean, actually. And that is, for example, one of them, to limit them a little bit, or like with the gearing in the very low RPM regions when you get full throttle done. But here it's easier with the petrol engines. Even the petrol engines, they also have particle filters meanwhile. Always keep enough distance to cyclists, very important. So a lot of car drivers are also cyclists themselves. That's always, gives you a better understanding then. Yeah, here we go, very clear. And this is, to me, then again, a little bit more fun to drive with the petrol engine, because it just gives you some more power from the very low RPM regions. The diesels are really a strong force when you are, for example, already on the motorway, have already picked up speed and then accelerate further, then all those Newton meters are kicking in, and then the diesel is also a lot of fun to drive. But again, especially for city traffic and so on, the petrols are a little bit more fun because they are more spontaneous from the get-go. You do not necessarily need the highest horsepower trim here for the A4, but of course it's quite fun to have this, this power now here on the hood. The adaptive suspension here in the normal driving mode is relatively soft. It shakes also a little bit. Also, for example, when you hit the brakes, you feel it, but that's totally fine. The Allroad is also a little bit higher, and you want to have this plus on comfort. However, now here in the winding roads, let's go to the dynamic mode. Then the suspension gives me a little bit more feedback, and don't want any traffic information. So here now a little bit more feedback than from the road. Also the gears turn up higher, quite nice sound. But of course there's still a big difference to the S4 for the suspension. And here now in those winding roads, you also feel that the Allroad sits a little bit higher. So that's a little bit less fun than in those winding roads. However, when you're driving straight and so on, it's also somewhat cool to sit a little bit higher, have this crossover feeling of the Allroad. So overall, I think it's nice. Depends on if you have, let's say, a lot of use where you do exactly the thing I'm doing here right now. It's still okay, but definitely less fun than in the normal A4, or especially than in the S4. But it still gives you a good feeling for the whole vehicle. See here, I don't have to stir the steering wheel that much. It's a very progressive input by the steering wheel. With the S4 it was even a little bit more progressive, so better to control. But still, this is an A4 Allroad. It's not meant to drive sporty, but it's still reasonable fun. But what about co-driver Holger here? How do you feel? Is it still okay, or is it too shaky then with this soft suspension here?
No, it's all okay, and so what a wonderful landscape.
Yeah, wonderful landscaping. Yeah. So for a co-driver, it's also okay still. But it's always a good measure to ask the guy next to you, like, how do you feel? Because I can hold on to the steering wheel, definitely.
Yeah, it's comfortable.
Yeah, it's still very comfortable. So again, they master a very good compromise here with the A4 range. Great suspensions, probably. That's what's almost the best about this vehicle. Next to the interior build quality, a really great suspension, and again, this sophistication that this vehicle delivers you might also give you an impression of driving a segment higher. This is also what they try to achieve with this facelift, and we talked about that earlier. Also visually, they moved it closer towards the A6. Yeah, price-wise, this will still be very intensive. You think about 35k is a base entry version of an A4, and then an S4 would be 60k plus, 65k at least. When you put some extras in it, even more. That's of course very expensive then. This one here is not as expensive as the S4, but with the stronger petrol engine here and the all-road trim and so on, and a lot of extras, it will still by far not be a budget car. But very good ride. Still I have fun, enjoy those winding corners here. And you know, this petrol engine here is really good on the gas. You have the feeling you always get in the right RPMs. Here also, especially with the S shifting mode. So with this car here now, I don't have the feeling I would need to use the shifting pedals. I can, of course, here go back for second gear, then click here, third gear, stay in third gear then. But I don't need it really. So hold the right pedal, then it goes back to the automatic shifting mode again. But here it already jumps back earlier, so I don't have the urge to use the bow. Sometimes the birds fly very low over the street, so you always have to pay attention. Wow, those mountain ranges there in the back, really cool. Attention with the bus. Yeah, we can show you some of the acceleration here now when the next cars have passed. We will leave them by because it's very narrow here, so they have a better chance to pass right here. And then we can show you something of the acceleration here from the petrol engine, especially look at how it really gets going just from the get-go. We do like 0 to 40 or something, just a short, but it's really interesting in the S mode just from the get-go. That's already 70 kilometers. So also with the all-wheel drive, pretty good drive on that, but difference here to the 3-liter diesel we've driven here than the 2-liter petrol engine. So two differences. The 3-liter engines have the Tiptronic converter automatic gearbox, and they have the all-wheel drive setup, 40% in the front, 60% in the rear, the base setup. So rear-wheel biased. Here I definitely feel this is here front plus rear. So it is the all-wheel drive, yes, but rear on demand. And this is also a dual clutch transmission, which does some very nice and quick shifting, yes. So I'm not sure that you feel big difference between the S-tronic and the Tiptronic. But the bigger difference you do feel is that you don't have a rear wheel bias here. So in this vehicle you rather feel that you're being pulled from the front rather than pushed from the rear. So that's also what are making those 3-liter engines for the A4 definitely sportier and agile when you accelerate out of the corners. When you go straight, it doesn't really matter. On the motorway you don't feel the difference, but when you accelerate out of the corners, then you do feel a difference for that. And then also those 3-liter engines, they are a little bit more fun to drive. But still, for a front-wheel biased car with a 2-liter engine and without a special sporty suspension setup, this one is still here really very decent in an agile driving run. And I mean, we don't drive too slow, and the noise insulation still is keeping up at a very good level. For example, here now when those trucks will pass us, we leave them by, a little bit of space. You hardly hear them, Usually they're quite loud, but since the insulation is so well done, that's really very cool. You also hear that the RPMs are kept up high here in this S shifting mode. And even if you are in the sports mode for suspension, it still remains very, very comfortable. So definitely think that the A4 is probably one of the comfort kings here in this mid-size segment, and overall is delivering one of the best rides in the industry, and with different suspensions you can get. The adaptive suspensions, they do make sense, they give you more comfort and also the choice, the span to pick. However, we know that because Holger drives an A4, a normal one with the normal suspension, and that was also just fine, so that's also what I advocate for. If you want to save some money, you can always go for the base suspension. You still have a decent suspension there. You don't have so much variety with that, but still, it is very comfortable and not too shaky and so on. And you'll also be fine with a little bit less horsepower spec overall, because it's really the danger that those cars here get just too expensive, again, you know, then paying 60 or 70k for a mid-size vehicle, that really hurts them. But I can just stress again how we enjoyed this ride here, even in the all-road. But you just have to know that when you go for the all-road, you rather want this calm driving experience. Here, for example, now this limited speed, you go back to the auto mode or comfort or efficiency. You enjoy that you have a little bit higher, more crossover ride feeling, good dampening, great noise insulation. That's the main thing about this vehicle. And sportier than when you, for example, go for the adaptive sport suspension, or maybe go for the S model and so on. The fuel consumption is of course not that realistic, because we've been driving pretty agile those mountain roads here. I mean, I can tell you still, yeah, 22 liters, yay! But yeah, that's not a realistic, motorway cruise control fuel consumption. We can also test that for you later and give you the information. And for example, also just as a text info, with the 3-liter diesel, we had about 8 liters, 100 kilometers. With the petrol, probably, yeah, I mean, it's a smaller engine here, but then it's a petrol. We'll see about that, but it could also be somewhat equal for this petrol engine here. But definitely, we can also see that here now, the span of the petrol engine fuel consumption is always wider than you would have it with a diesel. The diesel always keeps in a certain range, and the petrol is can be quite low for minimum, but super high for maximum. So that's where the diesel is more efficient, definitely. By the way, this steering wheel here is not the S steering wheel as we had in the other review, but still, has a decent compact size. It already has a sporty look, so I'm also very happy about that. But like the little bit more progressiveness of the S steering setup a little bit better, then you had to steer even a little bit less for that. So seats also, they hold you quite good. Of course, it gets a little bit sticky here with the animal skin surface, so give it a go for the fabric seats. They offer you better climate comfort if they are available in your market. But overall, again, a very convincing experience here with the A4. With the facelift, of course, they didn't change too much in driving. It was mainly about the exterior changes, the design, and also here the interior technology. Talked also about to the suspension engineers, and they just told us, yeah, our suspensions were really very good already before, so we didn't really touch them. And in this case, I can say that's probably a good decision. And now we moved out of those beautiful mountains. Wow, what a landscape today, and I hope you really enjoyed that, both from the exterior and the driving parts. And we head on to the motorway. Here now, a little bit downhill. Here we can already test the cruise control, because the distance to the car in front of us is being kept. And at the moment it tells me that the predictive cruise control would not be available in this region here. So it always depends if the map data for that is sufficient. The predictive cruise control, for example, can reduce the speed in front of roundabouts because it gets information from the map data. That's a very interesting approach. Also, it can, for example, save fuel when it reduces speeds before you hit a mountain crest and then before you go downhill, because when you're going downhill you don't need any more acceleration, so it reduces the speed even before. Also a very interesting approach, definitely. The blind spot monitor you will soon discover here at the side mirrors. That's a very interesting spot to put it right there. And again, we can stress the silence of this vehicle. Now we're getting onto the motorway and also drive a little bit faster. Again, a good handling right here next to the corner. I'm in the dynamic mode still, because when we were driving on the mountain roads, I was staying in dynamic mode to get the suspension a little bit stiffer. And when we get on the motorway now, we set it to auto again to have the best comfort when rolling straight. You can, by the way, also change the shifting mode on demand. Just here with the shifting lever, that's possible. So we're getting into the Autostrada. So we're going from SD, SD. So you can shift it quite fast. Even you don't have to change the whole driving mode with the drive select. You can also just go then here that just the shifting mode is being changed. And now an acceleration onto the motorway from 60 kilometers to, let's see, and that's already 115. 110 is allowed right here, so reduce again. Quite spontaneous indeed, and also decent from the sound. So what we do right now, because we can set cruise control, we reset the consumption meter and see what that one delivers. We get back to 110 kilometers an hour. And the cruise control is being set here with a separate column next to the steering wheel. And I can also change the speed right there. So, at 110 kilometers an hour, or that's more than 60 miles an hour, it's again very relaxing here. Even if I have the suspension in the sports mode, it's still somewhat decent. However, the dampening is better than when I go back to the auto mode. And now we can really enjoy this crossover style and a little bit more height and the comfort setup of the adaptive suspension. Now the bumps are evened out very well, so that's good for long-term driving. So that's here now where the Allroad plays out all its advantages. Really like that. Oh, police controlling this boat. Maybe it was too heavy or something, I don't know. Lane change here, very stable also at the higher speeds. And there's no dead zone from the steering, so even here in the very, very low degree areas, always gives us something of a reaction. So that also got the first consumption result here when we just nil it before, and there it is, about 7 liters on 100 kilometers. And funnily, that's exactly the same fuel consumption that Holger has long term with his A4 Avant with a little smaller engine, so it doesn't have the same horsepower spec, but you know, you only consume more fuel if you have the higher horsepower spec if you really use that horsepower. If you keep it rather with the low RPMs, it won't make such a difference. It also depends on the topography, so of course when you're going downhill you have less consumption, when you're going uphill more again, that varies a little bit. But you know, that's also confirming what we tested before. And interesting is really that this 3-liter diesel with Audi is consuming rather more fuel than the 2-liter petrol engine. Yeah, that's a little bit strange, definitely. One thing is talked about that the rear wheel bias of the all-wheel drive system with the bigger engine is somewhat better when you accelerate out of the corners. However, fuel consumption-wise, this new Quattro system, where you have front-wheel drive predominantly and only need the rear wheels when you have, you know, a lot of torque being applied, then this one here as a front-wheel drive only mode consumes less fuel. So that would be an advantage of those systems right here, and that's also a reason why they do it. There you have also seen the blind spot monitor, so when the car is approaching from the rear, let them by because he wants to drive faster than allowed. So here that's a yellow symbol, and when I turn also then the turning indicator, then it starts flashing as an additional warning, so that's very interesting. Now we're getting to our next tunnel. It's really very flawless how the adaptive cruise control also, for example, when I'm approaching here a truck, for example, then it slows down and then go to the left side, then it accelerates again. This is really without any harsh transition. And now to our conclusion for this episode with the Audi A4 Allroad. The facelift has added more strong design elements, definitely front and also at the side. And the A4 Allroad is the one that actually looks the most different of all the different versions, because it now has those painted contrast wheel arches, and the accentuations here in silver are even stronger than before. Overall, a very unique one, the most unique version probably of this very model, and I think it does really fit to the vehicle, but would like to hear your opinion on that. On the interior, more the infotainment changes, especially with this big new screen. This is very well to use. Yes, you do lose this knob to control it while driving. That's the downside. Then again, everything is quite easy to control. That's the plus of this infotainment system. And also with those optional digital instruments, those are quite cool, especially when you want to check the map while driving, for example. In general, they are very high build quality. They do lack some animal skin alternatives in the high trim levels, but you get some base fabric seats, for example, which are doing a great job. Would advise you to go for those. And the driving experience, really very confident here with the softer all-road suspension that gives you this little bit lifted ride. It's more a crossover style then. It's not as sporty as with the others, especially not as with the S4 we've also driven, but still doing a very good job, very comfortable. And when you set it to sport mode, it also gives a little bit more reaction. This one here, if you do not want an SUV, that's maybe too high or more, don't like the SUVs in general or something, but you still want something a little bit higher than with the normal driving feeling. So this is a very interesting compromise. What do you think? Please tune into the comment sections. Let's discuss this vehicle. And please also join our other Audi A4 facelift episodes or also some of the competitors. We will also link other videos in the video description and in the comment sections. Thank you so much for supporting us. See you next time.